to Mr. Toastmaster. Have you ever made a mistake that at the time it was not funny at all, but you live to tell about it, and when you think back on it, it was actually pretty funny? We all make mistakes. Some are more memorable than others. I have been cooking for about 30 years, and yes, I started to cook when I was 5. No, not really. I learned to cook when I was in college. I can think of a few faux pas I've had in my cooking journey that I will share with you. A faux pas is an embarrassing social mistake. The first one happened shortly after I learned how to cook. It was the summer before my senior year in college. I was staying with my brother during the summer, and before I returned to college, I decided to have some friends over for a dinner party. I had increased my cooking repertoire to about 7 Chinese dishes that I can cook. And usually when you go to a Chinese restaurant to eat, you eat family style, you order 1 dish per person to ensure that there's enough food for everyone. So since I was having a dinner party of 8 people, I thought I needed to cook 8 dishes. One of the dishes I wanted to serve, I hadn't even made before. So I went out and I did all of my grocery shopping to make sure I had all the ingredients for each dish. My menu consisted of dishes like curry chicken, beef with broccoli, shrimp with tofu, Napa cabbage with a cream mushroom sauce, and several other dishes. The one dish I had not made before was crispy style Hong Kong fried noodles with seafood. So I had to look at a recipe and follow it. The guests arrived that night at 6 o'clock. I started preparation in the late afternoon. So when the guests arrived, I was cooking. I was cooking and I was cooking while the guests waited. 1 dish, 2 dish, 3 dish. I still have 5 more to go. The minutes went by. The hours went by. One of the guests brought over a box of chocolates as a gift. But they got so hungry while they were playing board games, they devoured the chocolates and ate the whole box of chocolates. In the meantime, I was still slaving away in the kitchen. I was on the last dish, the Hong Kong style crispy fried noodles, and since I hadn't cooked it before, I kept looking at the recipe book and sweating. By the time dinner was served, the guests had waited almost 2.5 hours. I'm glad none of the guests had fainted, because by that time, the guests were so famished that anything would have tasted good to them. And that's how I tricked my guests to compliment me on my food. The big mistake I made was that the quantity of each one of my dishes was so much more than a dish in a Chinese restaurant. So for 8 people, I had way too much food because I cooked about a pot of food for each dish. And so that night, I had so much food left over, I called up my pastor and brought all the pots of food to his family because he has 7 kids and they really appreciate the food. So lesson number 1 learned, don't overcook the quantity of food for the number of guests you are serving. Don't make your guests wait 3 hours for dinner to be served. They may never come to one of your dinner parties again, or they'll show up 3 hours late. Another cooking flop that happened a few years later when we had invited this new couple we met over for dinner. And let me just call this couple John and Mary to protect their identity. John and Mary were from Taiwan, and I wanted to make a famous Chinese dish that people in Taiwan often eat. It's called beef noodle soup. So I told them I was going to serve that for dinner. Beef noodle soup is very delicious, as the beef is so soft and tender, it kind of melts in your mouth. It is served with noodles and baby bok choy and a delicious beef broth. There are famous restaurants in Taiwan, and there's also one in Irvine, that just specialize in beef noodle soup. So when John and Mary heard that I'm going to make this special entree, they were so excited and said, wow, we're gonna have beef noodle soup. In preparation for this dinner, I went to the nearby Chinese grocery store to buy the beef. I told the grocery lady what I wanted to buy. She went to the freezer and got out this chunk of frozen beef. And she said, here, this is what you need for beef noodle soup. I bought this beef and went home and cooked it for hours and hours so that the meat will become soft and tender. When the guests arrived, we sat down right away as they couldn't wait to dig into this beef noodle soup. We bit into the beef and started to chew. We were chewing and chewing and chewing as we looked at each other. And the beef was so tough. Oh my gosh, after I chewed for 2 minutes, I still can't swallow it. I was so embarrassed as we wanted to treat John and Mary to the very delicious meal, but now they can't even chew the beef. But John and Mary were so nice and gracious. They were still our friends after this dinner. So lesson number 2, know the quality of the meat you are buying before you serve guests if you don't want their teeth to fall out or choke on indigestible cardboard. The moral of this story is don't dwell on your mistakes, but learn from them. I didn't stop cooking after these 2 cooking disasters. I didn't give up. As long as I don't kill anyone with my cooking, I'm gonna keep on going. And when life throws you lemons, you make some lemonade. And believe me, I made plenty of lemonade in my lifetime. Mr. Toastmaster?
Thank you.